Welcome back to the OSM channel. Question of the day, is there a difference between truly seasoned firewood and dry firewood? Is one better to burn than the other? I'm going to answer that in today's video. Now, what has prompted this video? Well, yesterday I watched a very popular video, had 500,000 views. The video is titled, "The Difference Between Dried and Truly Seasoned Firewood." The video was produced by a channel named Homesteading Off the Grid. No disrespect to the other creator out there, however, I really disagree with what he was saying in his video, and I'm going to explain why. So I'll start by saying I think you should watch that video, then watch mine, and then chime in the comment section and tell me what you think. But basically, he started off his video by having 3 pieces of firewood on the table in front of the camera. One piece of wood looks similar to this. He described this piece of wood as truly seasoned, meaning that it's very discolored, it's black, it's moldy-ish, you know, it's been out in the elements, and this is the best type of wood to burn. He then showed a piece of wood that he considered to be dried. However, notice this is a dry piece of wood, but it hasn't discolored much. He said that this type of wood, just dry wood, is not the best. You want truly seasoned wood. And then, of course, he had a piece of fresh split wood that was wet, obviously not ready to burn. When it comes right down to it, that's a load of nonsense. All that matters is the moisture content in the wood. When you reach that ideal 10 to 20% moisture content, that is when your wood is ready to burn. So let's start by defining what seasoned firewood is. Seasoned firewood is wood that has been left out to air dry for an extended period of time. What is dry firewood? Well, dry firewood is defined as firewood that has reached a moisture percentage of 10 to 20%. And I know what you're going to say. Well, what about the discoloration of the wood? Why is this piece so discolored compared to this piece? Well, the reason this piece is so discolored is because it's been left out in the elements. It's been low to the ground, mud has splashed on it, it's not covered by a tarp. You know, between UV bleaching, the rain, mud splatter, and mold forming, yes, there's mold forming on this piece of wood. That is what has caused this piece to discolor so drastically. In fact, I've been doing a lot of research this morning, and I'm going to cite the source that I pulled some of this information from. So I pulled this information from a website called Press Chem, and I will leave a link to that cited source in the description down below. But seasoned wood may change color slightly or drastically. Here are 2 factors that I've highlighted. Exposure to rain bleeds natural pigment. So that's one thing to consider. And here's another biggie. Exposure to UV breaks down the lignin into simple sugars. These sugars act as a food source for mold, which can be dark and blotchy in appearance. But in situations where they are controlled, such as tarps or indoor storage, the mold doesn't develop. So between these 2 pieces, this piece has been protected from the elements. It has not had much UV exposure, therefore it has not drastically changed color. And this wood is still perfectly safe to burn because it is in that ideal moisture range of 10 to 20%. This piece, on the other hand, you may look at it and think, well, that's an extraordinarily well-seasoned piece of wood. It must be dry. That is not always true. In fact, I'm going to take my moisture meter out right now. I'm going to plug it into this truly seasoned piece of wood, this dry piece of firewood, and then this wet piece of firewood freshly split. And we'll take a look at the differences in the moisture percentages. Again, all 3 pieces are oak. I have this moisture meter set to metering 3, which is the proper setting for oak. Now let's plug this moisture meter into this truly seasoned wood that's been left outside to the elements. Let's go high. Look at that, 32%. But it's a truly seasoned piece of wood. It must be ready to burn. That is not always the case. There's 24%. So this piece of wood is not ready to burn. Now let's move on to the dry piece of wood that's been covered by the tarp. Now this wood has discolored very slightly, but again, it's been protected from the sun, it's been covered by a tarp, it's been drying for approximately 1.5 to 2 years now. Piece of oak. Let's see what kind of moisture percentage this wood holds. That is ideal. 11%, well 10.8. 11.4, 9.9. So although this piece does not look as dark and discolored as this piece is dry, and this piece is 100% ready to go. Now let's take a look at the wet piece of wood. Freshly split. I was actually expecting this to be a little bit higher moisture content. So technically it's within the right range, but I'd like to let this sit and dry out for a while longer. Yeah, that's closer to 18%. I'd like to see it a bit lower. Closer to 10-12% would be better, but I mean, that just goes to show you, just because your piece of wood is discolored does not mean that it's ready to burn. Again, moisture content is key.